as you continue being anxious, continue being nervous, continue backing up the fact that you can't socialize, you're bad at communicating, you're awkward, the more you back that up, the more that becomes your personality, the more that becomes your identity, and the more you struggle to get out of it. My own journey with my anxiety has been my own journey, right? So the way that I learned to deal with it, or the tools that I have gained over time to deal with my anxiety, it may look different than yours. My journey may look different than yours. But the truth is that I've struggled with anxiety for a long time in my life, and it's a lot better now. I used to think that I had social anxiety, crippling anxiety, really preventing me from living. And I thought, this is just how I was. I think when I was younger, I made it my personality to be anxious, to be insecure, to be socially awkward, to hate people, to be antisocial. And all of this was actually, I think, avoidance of feeling my emotions. Which were very deep. And I have a better understanding of my emotions now. Back then, I really felt insecure about my sensitivity. When I was growing up, I was extremely sensitive, brought to tears easily, brought to hysterical crying easily, panic attacks very easily for things that now I would never have a panic attack over. And anyone around me who wasn't dealing with the emotionality that I was experiencing would have thought maybe that was odd, too much. Very often my family, who was definitely trying to be supportive, couldn't understand where I was coming from. And a lot of the times this was brought on and triggered by very, very small occurrences, like checking out at the store or doing something for myself, ordering something by myself. These things that made me feel like I had social anxiety. And I think because of this experience when I was younger, I realized after it went away that I'm not really sure how real that social anxiety was. At least for me. I think what is happening a lot is this internalization of our insecurity. I think it's a projection of our own personal perception. And this sounds silly, but as you continue being anxious, continue being nervous, continue backing up the fact that you can't socialize, you're bad at communicating, you're awkward, the more you back that up, the more that becomes your personality, the more that becomes your identity, and the more you struggle to get out of it. So the way that I started getting over my anxiety was through willpower. And I think this could be a little taboo subject because for a lot of people who are neurodivergent or dealing with issues related to maybe anxiety or different anxiety disorders, this might not be always the best advice. It's not gentle advice. It's not easy advice, but this is just my personal story with my anxiety and how I managed to help my brain understand that it was just a story. Even when I was anxious, when I got into high school, I started realizing that I was holding myself back. I started realizing that I was one of the only ones that I knew that couldn't order their own drink, who couldn't go up to a stranger at a yard sale and ask the price of an item. I realized that that was something that was normal for most people. So there were many times that if I had to do that, as I said before, I would go into a little bit of a panic. I would hysterically cry. I'd be hyperventilating and I couldn't deal with it. And the people around me would be like, is she okay? Is she experiencing something? And, perhaps I was, but I think more so it was a perspective that I had been building up because I didn't have the support or resources that would have actually helped soothe me in those moments, that would have actually helped me regain my balance and my equilibrium, which means regulating my nervous system. I didn't have the resources or the understanding to be able to regulate my nervous system in those moments. And it made me feel even more alone, even more isolated. And in that, I internalized it to make it my story, a deeper part of my story, and a deeper aspect of me as an anxious, hysterical, sensitive baby. And so how did I use my own choices, my own decisions, and my own force of will to get me out of this. When I started realizing that it was holding me back, I started analyzing the different things that I was doing that were not like other people. And in doing this, I was able to see and assess the things that were maybe adding to this sense of insecurity. And this awareness of that is how I started breaking free. When I was in high school, after I had moved states and I was in a spot where I didn't really have that many friends, I felt really isolated and alone. The period of time in my life was a rough one. I haven't really stayed in contact with people from that time. But there was also a lot of stressors during that time. And I would wear this jacket every day, and it was my safety blanket. It was a fleece leopard print jacket. You'd be like, you're anxious and you're wearing leopard print? Yeah, I don't always know how it works. It's the things that bring us comfort and joy. They sometimes are weird and unexpected, right? Just like babies that grow attached to a string, or they carry around something for a long time just as a security blanket, or a real blanket, or their binky, or whatever. It's this sense of security, and it could come from anywhere. And for me, it was a leopard print fleece jacket that I would wear no matter what season, no matter if it was hot, no matter if I was sweating. I would wear it because that was my safety blanket. And the idea of wearing a t-shirt in school and having exposed arms freaked me out so much because of my anxiety. I was afraid of judgment. I was afraid of, it doesn't necessarily make sense. If you struggle with anxiety, then you'll understand this. One day in the summer, I told myself, it's scary, but think of all the times you're uncomfortable because you're sweating when you're wearing this. Think of all the times that it hasn't gone with your outfit. Ew. Think of all the times that people have looked at you wondering why you won't take it off because it's like so hot. But you say you're cold, even though clearly there's sweat. And I thought about it, and I said, even if I have the urge to wear this, if I don't take it with me, I can't. If I run out of the house and get on the bus without taking it with me, I can't wear it. And I had this knowledge that it was going to be one of the most uncomfortable experiences, possibly. I knew I was going to have to fight my own mind. I was going to have to think people were looking at me. I was going to have to go through what every look from everyone meant. Just all of this anxiety tied into not having my security blanket. And so I looked at myself in the mirror, I took it off, I put it in my room, and I quickly got ready before I could change my mind, put on my shoes, walked out the door, got on the bus. And I thought about it for a while. I can't fully remember the day, but I remember feeling what I thought I would feel: severe anxiety, crippling anxiety, panic, worry about what people thought of me, about maybe not feeling safe. And what I actually felt and what I actually received from that day was empowerment and confidence. And I don't fully remember everything that happened that day, but I do know what I was wearing. And I was wearing a white shirt that had I Heart HN, which is Hawk Nelson, which is a Christian band from way back. I Heart Hawk Nelson. I was wearing one long earring and one stud, I think. Can't remember what side. There's a stud and then one long earring that I would wear that I made out of a Christmas ornament. It was a red, very decorative star, the long cross kind of star. Bright red and shiny. And I loved that. And I always would play around with my earrings even when I was wearing my jacket, but I remember this is what I was wearing. And I had shorter hair and I was wearing my makeup like I always did. And I felt so confident. I felt so good. So I wasn't hot and I wasn't sweating, and it made me not insecure because although my deodorant never wore off when I sweat before, I would have the anxiety. That anxiety wasn't present anymore because I wasn't sweating. I felt so good. And from that day on, I did not wear that when I was hot anymore. I would wear it for fashion. I would wear it if it was cold. But I did not wear it as a security blanket anymore. I started caring more about my fashion. When I got into my later high school years, I was all about the fashion, was not concerned. Now, I was still self-isolating to an extent. I still had trouble forming and keeping relationships just because I'd moved so much. Actually, my later high school years, I went to a different school again. So I moved for my last year of middle school, and then I did high school for 1 year at a certain school, another school, different school system again. And then I did school online and fell into depression because of lack of connection, which is crazy and shocked me because I thought I was antisocial, didn't like people, was anxious, could have stayed in my room all day. I got depressed and missed real school. And then I went back to school at a different school, again in a different district. So let's just say it was hard to form roots, right? But eventually, during those last high school years, my social anxiety disappeared. And then I got into some stressful situations and I moved away from my support system and my family, and that social anxiety came back. That anxiety came back. And it made me realize that my self-isolating is a perspective thing. It's a perspective thing mostly. And it is also who is around you having an important support system. Like, I had my family in high school, allowed me to grow. But when I didn't have my family, it brought back up this insecurity, this isolation. I think that isolation is really the biggest part of what made me so anxious. And then after those dark times, I started coming back into my power again, and all of that anxiety went away. All of it went away. I can talk to strangers. I enjoy talking to strangers. I'm not concerned. I stand up straight, and that has a lot to do with it. It's how you hold yourself too. I would say I got mostly into fashion, not just because I love it, but because it actually boosted my confidence so much. And that's something that helped my anxiety. And these areas where I saw myself saying no, even though the deeper part of me wanted to say yes, just because of fear of what they would think, what someone would do, what someone would say, what someone would think about me, if I would look funny. Those are not things I care about anymore. It is really through making different choices actively, even when I don't want to. And that is this willpower, because a lot of the times we get stuck when we're super anxious and we don't have control of those feelings. When I was younger, when I couldn't regulate myself, when I wasn't meditating, that's another thing I did in high school, started meditating. That helped tremendously. Actually being able to observe more things in my life and witness the story without being attached to it helped so much. I would say, if you notice yourself being extremely anxious about something to the point where you can't regulate, you don't know what to do, I would say if you can stop yourself just to breathe deeply before, you can still make the anxiety choice if you want after that, but I want you to take a deep breath first. Take a deep breath, and if you can come back into a balanced state of mind for a moment after this deep breathing, I want you to ask yourself, if you made a different choice, could it be better? Could it be better? Could you feel good? If you absolutely don't think so, okay, we'll start from the beginning. Next time, take a deep breath, think about it. And on another level, if you make this anxiety choice, is it helping you? Is it something that genuinely will make everything okay? Or is it an avoidance of something bigger, something deeper? Because I realized very often when I would be anxious to go hang out with a friend who invited me to a birthday party, right? I'm anxious. That anxiety is not based on it being a bad environment, the people being terrible, and I'm not gonna have fun. My anxiety was based on the avoidance of genuine connection because I was afraid that these people would not like me and would see me for my flaws. And then I would be even more insecure, feel even more isolated, because my anxiety, my social anxiety, and my self-isolation came from the fact that I felt isolated. And you're like, if you feel isolated, don't you want to seek connection? On some level, you would think that. And for some people, maybe that is how it plays out. But for me, it was so deeply embedded in me that I am not like everyone else. I cannot connect with other people. I do not like small talk. I do not like communicating with other people. Because I made that my identity, I couldn't allow myself the opportunity to connect. I couldn't allow myself the opportunity to let go my guard, to release that, to actually be more intimately connected with my world. I couldn't do that for myself when I was stuck with a dysregulated system. And for me, yes, it could be from trauma on some level. I've been through quite a few things, so there's a lot in there to unpack. But I would say when it comes to anxiety, really what we're trying to do is get back into having a regulated nervous system. And if you're struggling with nervous system dysregulation, I would say please research the tools. Work on this, because when you are able to self-regulate, that is one of the biggest transformations that you can have. That is one of the biggest things that you can do for yourself. It is learning how to help your system get back into a regular state. Because when we're under all this stress, or we're under all of this just density, I mean, I use this word a lot because that's just the best descriptor of what we're going through. These dense, stuck emotions that are within us. We need to shake them loose. We need to shake them free, and we're never gonna feel like we have released the shackles until we truly learn how to release that stuff. And to release that means to do the work. And I think this is this willpower. Some people have a harder time healing and dealing with anxiety because they don't have the willpower to actually choose to learn, to choose a better system for dealing and processing with their emotions. And sometimes people just genuinely don't know that this is what's happening to them. And so hopefully if that was you and you just didn't know that your nervous system is dysregulated in these moments, then I hope that this is going to kind of open the door to you learning more about yourself as a human being and your needs and what actually helps us feel stable and secure in this life. I hope this helped you. I love you. Thank you for being here. I'm proud of you. I'm proud of you. If you care about this topic, then I'm almost positive that you have much more power over your life than you think you do. And I am so excited to see you thrive.